sadly it isn't a myth. We find that divorce increases, and certainly our inquiries increase after Christmas. We often get a few inquiries before Christmas of people who are planning to separate after Christmas, who perhaps haven't told their spouse yet. They come and see us, they need to know really where they stand, and then they separate in the new year. So we definitely do see, sadly, an increase in January.
That's a sort of sad thought, really, isn't it? That some people have been going through Christmas knowing that they're going to sort of deliver this information to you at the end of it.
That's the most tragic thing. I mean, you're quite right, this happens so often, and I think it's absolutely awful. We always have the idea that maybe Christmas is the final straw on the camel's back that absolutely breaks it, but actually I think in a lot of cases people know already that they're heading for the end. And the awful thing is what they often do is think, well, I'll give my spouse that last happy Christmas, or my children that last happy Christmas. And in fact, of course, it's actually the opposite, because when people discover afterwards that this is what you've been planning, it makes the whole thing a lie. And I have had clients who literally hate Christmas and have hated Christmas all their lives ever since the time that their parents broke up.
It's a very bad time in some ways to try and make those enormous decisions, though, isn't it? Because it's a time of everything's heightened.
Yes, yes.
And in some ways it's the worst possible time to even think about making the final decision, isn't it? I mean,
it's a pressure cooker. I mean, Christmas is a very, very stressful time because often you are there for 10 days maybe stuck in a home with a lot of people that you don't normally spend that much time with, and that you can make you angrier and more upset, and everything does get heightened instead of being able to sit down and talk about it. And the awful thing is that if you rush to law very, very quickly, if that's the first place you go when you think you've got problems, you're liable to have an acrimonious divorce, and that's what harms children, not divorce.
Right, and the other thing about going to lawyers, Sarah, I'm sure you will appreciate this, is that it's expensive as well.
It can be expensive. The more acrimonious it is, the more expensive it's going to be. And what I tend to say to clients is, if you want to keep your legal fees down, try and talk and keep it amicable with your ex-spouse, especially if you've got children. I think it's always important to get the right legal advice at the start, but then there are many processes that you can choose without going to court. Court should always be a last resort. They could try collaborative law, which is where you sit round the table with your ex-partner and their solicitor. You could try family mediation. You could try something else that we've just launched in Manchester called lawyer-supported mediation, which is a much more affordable process, because the solicitor stays in the background advising the client, but they undertake the negotiations and mediation themselves.
So you literally sit around a table and talk about it rather than sending sort of expensive, more and more expensive letters to each other.
Because the more acrimonious it is, the more correspondence there is, the more court time there potentially is, and the more expensive it is.
And the worse the outcomes for children afterwards. And in fact the adults involved.
Yes, I'm sort of assuming as well, Sarah, that once someone's come to you, that's a kind of inexorable process. I mean, you're not going to pull back from there.
Not always. I've been doing this a long time, and you get to know when a client isn't quite sure. So what you say to them is, right, there's only one ground for divorce, and that is that your marriage is irretrievably broken down, and quite simply that means that you've no chance of reconciliation. And I will say to them, if you're not sure that you're there yet, then try Relate, try marriage guidance counselling, and then come back to me if it doesn't work. And if it does work, well, you know, all the best.
You'll be surprised how many people actually go to law first, and in fact what they want is counselling. And they need to be, and you know, good lawyers like this do actually push them towards Relate, Family Lives. There are a lot of places where they will get that counselling and that help. Maybe to end it, maybe in fact to end it in the best way possible, but it's still a better way than just saying let's go straight into courts and let's go straight into
It's also worth saying as well, and both of you have had experience of this, Susie particularly, that if a marriage is beyond repair in that sense, it's very, very damaging for all parties to stay that way, just to carry on regardless.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think the idea of staying together for the sake of the children is a good idea, and it's terrible for the adults involved, it's terrible for the children involved. So certainly, if it is ended, then end it, but do it in a way that leaves you actually some room to still go on being co-parents. We have a lovely phrase in Family Lives, which is a charity that I'm a trustee of, which is love your children more than you hate each other. And it's surprising how many parents think that they can do this without it affecting their children. You can't not affect your children, but you can help them to cope with it better.
And of course, Sarah, I mean, sort of looking forward, if you do have children and you're getting divorced, you know, this is you know, you are going to, legally, etc., going to have some sort of relationship with your partner anyway, aren't you?
Yes, and what I tend to say, especially as I'm a family mediator, so what I will say to family mediation clients is, think of your relationship more as a business relationship. Be civil. You may never be friends, but at least you can be civil with each other. And you're not just co-parenting these children till they're 18, you're doing it for the rest of their lives. They're going to want you there when they graduate from university, they're going to want you there